For our first story, OP figures out the GM's endgame. Let's throw tinder onto the fire. When I was 12 years old, I used to have a best friend and we started to hang out a lot. During one of these events, I met this older guy who was 17, and he introduced us to RPGs. This guy had a sister that was our age, and it was her that had introduced me to my best friend. His family was very close to my best friend's since they grew up together and have an older brother type of relationship. The guy was remarkably charismatic and quite good looking in a perspective of a 12-year-old. We started to play every weekend, and during the games, he always gave me the magic items. And during character roleplay, he was always flirty. The characters he used to play with other groups were always the legendary heroes of our campaigns, and for some reason, his characters always started relationships with my characters in-game. He became touchy with time, started intimate conversations with me, and obviously lied about his level of intimate experiences, trying to impress me. As I was growing up, I started to notice how weird his behavior was. It was obvious why he targeted me, since our D&D party was him as GM, his sister, my best friend, and her twin, and a male friend of mine I had just introduced to the game. At 16, I started to speculate about his intentions to the point that my male friend agreed with me. Eventually, we broke up the party because the GM was ganging up on my male friend and I stopped talking with the group. Now I'm 20 and was swiping through Tinder, and guess what? The guy super liked me. I chatted with him only to get information and confirm what I thought, and yep, I came to the conclusion that he always tried to hook up with me, but since I was a kid, it wasn't acceptable, so he groomed me to keep me available till I was older, and when I noticed that, I just stopped playing with them. Good on OP for being able to dodge that situation. It's kinda crazy for the GM to put so much effort into this, and is very sad. Unfortunately, there are some who get trapped, but this story makes things a little bit more hopeful. What do you think about OP's situation? In this next story, 2 DMs enter and 1 DM takes over. Let's throw a grenade into the fire. So my friends and I play Mass Effect 5e, a sci-fi conversion for vanilla D&D 5e. In the beginning, we had 2 GMs who worked together, myself and Alex. This game was a high lethality XCOM inspired game with missions running out of a base. There was an understanding we'd all lose characters at some point, and we used individual leveling systems based on enemy kills rather than milestone or regular XP. Yep, in hindsight, it was a horrible system. Session 2 rolls around. As agreed on in advance, I GM'd the first half and Alex did the second half. We were approaching the end of the session after an intense firefight retaking a volcano base. Alex's GMPC, a battle-hardened tough guy, expressed disdain for the cowardly behavior of the shy combat medic PC who had spent some of the fight using a first aid spell and firing pot shots over cover. Another PC stood up for the shy medic. The GM PC, being a hulking titan of a creature, succeeded on a strength contest to throw them both inside a metal shipping container. He then proceeded to toss in a grenade and shut the door. Now normally, this grenade was supposed to deal 3d8 thunder damage, but Alex decided, for the drama and rule of cool, it's gonna deal 12d10. With only 1 failed check, the 2 full health PCs were obliterated. Afterwards, Alex happily described it as intense player conflict with his favorite nervous laugh. The laugh that said, "I'm not responsible, but I have bad news for us all." 2 player kills, eh? They were both level 3, right? So equivalent to CR3? That means I level up, about 6 levels. The murdered players were more than a bit unhappy, and I did bring this up to him as the other DM, suggesting leveling off of PvP would be problematic, but I was dismissed. I was dismissed so hard that he kicked me out of the co-DMing position a few sessions later. Alex's DMPC was now level 9, while the rest of us were still 3. This power discrepancy eventually led to him reaching level 20 by session 10, while we still had level 9 players in the party. This also gave rise to Alex going even further to homebrewing cybernetics to allow himself to dual-wield 2-handed weapons like sniper rifles. This eventually led to his most infamous phrase, "I'm gonna make 23 attacks." I'm sorry, but that party should have left a long time ago. There are just so many red flags that I can barely see the story at this point. Frankly, I don't really feel bad for OP because there were more than enough reasons to leave a long time ago. But one is still free to complain, I guess, about having a horrible 10 sessions. What do you all think about Alex and OP in this situation? In this next story, Fred debates the proper moral consequences of stealing. Let's throw some water onto the fire. Now, this guy named Fred had this character named Jang. Despite my clear communication that the setting was fantasy ancient China, Jang ran around with a katana and a penchant for anime tropes. And despite his sheet reading chaotic neutral, he was awfully fond of assaulting random people he had just met with his katana to test their strength, threatening to slaughter harmless old men rambling on the side of the road, and outright abusing fellow party members. The pinnacle of this broken sense of morality was when Fred dragged out a brief side session at a hot spring spa into a 4-session personal quest. In his unending mission to be contrarian and make me tear my hair out, he complained about the attention I was giving him despite doing everything he could in-game to ensure it happened. This spa, you see, was ran by a young lady who had a problem. Someone kept coming into the bathhouse when she wasn't looking and then left without paying for the service. Fred was very keen on having Jang woo this young businesswoman, so he promised to track down the fella responsible. The rest of the party argued against it, so he threatened to do it entirely by himself. When they relented and found the responsible party, it turned out to be a poor young farm boy who just wanted a taste of the high life while out on an altruistic mission. Jang slit his throat. This was not only baffling behavior in-game, but afterwards, when I told him to change his alignment to chaotic evil, he put up a fight. Fred defended his character's behavior, insisting it was the morally correct thing to do. Let's put this into perspective. You, out in the real world, walk into a corner shop and the cashier looks down in the dumps. She mentions some guy shoplifted. You say, "I'll deal with it." Go find the guy, stab him several times, and return to the cashier drenched in his blood. You smile and say, Want to come back to my place? Fred seemed to think that yes, that was an entirely acceptable behavior because the wronged party was a pretty young woman. This is the same guy who skipped an important funeral of one of our family members that he was invited to attend virtually, claiming he was working when he was actually playing Genshin Impact. Not having Fred in my games anymore has single-handedly lifted a lot of stress off of my shoulders as a GM. Suicidal moves in combat, metagaming, gaslighting, bullying of other players, and insisting it's okay to commit murder on behalf of a pretty face are all things I won't miss. I sure hope Fred doesn't find himself on the wrong side of the law. It looks like it could be a life or death situation for him. What do you think about Fred's sense of justice? For this last story, we have a DM who is apparently a min-maxer in more ways than one. Let's throw suboptimal choices into the fire. About 6 months ago, my husband and I were invited to join a D&D campaign for newbies. I stressed to the group that while we'd love to learn, we are newbies and completely unfamiliar with tabletop RPGs, and asked if that was okay. The DM agreed and said it would be a great introductory campaign, no problem, etc. All of the other players in the group said that they were in the exact same position. Great! The DM put a lot of effort into his homebrew campaign and even hand-painted figures, scenery, etc. However, it is clear he wants the game played as if by highly experienced players, and he has expressed that the quality of our play is basically beneath the quality of the campaign he has created for us. The thing is, our group is trying very hard in good faith to learn. Every week, we come prepared. We spent an immense amount of time creating and learning our characters and reading the player's handbook. But I've realized a ton of learning to play D&D is achieved through just getting in there and doing it. The DM will not allow this. He critiques and challenges our every move that we make. It makes people afraid of coming up with creative solutions. There's always a reason they don't work. There's always a reason we fail, or something isn't allowed. Every week I am anxious because of how mean and demeaning the DM has become. He mocks every decision I make about my character, not because it's wrong, but because it's stupid, or a poor tactic in his opinion. Even when I'm building my character, he changed a lot about it to intentionally make it OP, when literally I just wanted to learn for myself. On multiple occasions when I've asked him to be more respectful in his tone, he has targeted me in combat and tried to kill my character, nearly succeeding multiple times. Last night, I don't know what came over me. He spent the entire session talking to me like I was the dumbest person on the planet, and I finally just saw red. I told him off and left in the middle of the session. I am not a confrontational person. I'm really sad because I feel like I was finally getting comfortable role-playing as my character. I was getting a good grasp on the game, and I really was enjoying the other group members. But I realized I'm so far past my breaking point with the DM that I can't handle his behavior anymore. The other players agree that the way that the DM behaves is rude, but basically they say, "That's how he always is," and kind of shrugs it off. I cried last night because I feel I'm simply not cut out for D&D and decided it was best if I quit. I don't think I'll play again. It was an immense emotional and mental investment, not to mention the time, and my confidence as a player is totally shattered. This really stinks. The DM is basically treating D&D like a test where there is only one correct answer for everything. This is not how your first campaign should go. D&D is all about freedom and being able to make mistakes. If everything was supposed to be done perfectly, then why even throw dice? I hope OP tries D&D again and finds a better group that is actually newbie friendly. But what do you all think about this situation? And what do you think about these stories overall?